Let me introduce you to Tom Zaccheo. Tom has been with us for a little over 20 years now, and Tom is a good example. Yeah, you laugh, it has been more than decades.
No.
Yeah. Tom's been with us for a little while now, and one of the things that I like about Tom is that he is what you would consider a good continuing ed person, student, who retired and said, I want to take advantage of going to the university, learning a different thing, regardless of what it is, right? He did his role in taking language courses, and then he started taking ceramics here, although he took ceramics in other places before.
Not as good.
Not as good because, of course, I was here, right? He started taking courses here and got addicted to it and took every single course that I offered. Then he started taking sculpture courses, took every sculpture course that I offer, which is easy to do with 20 years. But I'll tell you what I like about Tom is a true student, one that takes on the class objectives, one that doesn't shy away from work, which is expected at a university setting from every single student, right? Continuing ed is about taking the class, being part of the community, being part of the group, and Tom's a good example of being able to take on that role, not just taking courses for fun, but rather taking courses for a grade, to improve, to get better. And as you guys walk through this exhibit, you're gonna see all the different type of work that he has gotten into over the years. Gone from throwing on the wheel to hand building to building his own equipment to construct different pieces, but you're also going to see an assortment of glazes and kiln firings that he took on, all of course being part of the classes that he took. So I hope you guys enjoy the exhibit, and I hope you guys enjoy listening to Tom, and yeah, this is going to be great.
Thank you.
All right.
My name is Priya Green, and I am the gallery director here at the Chen Art Gallery. I'm also a professor here as well, and I met Tom maybe about over a year ago, shortly after I started here at CCSU, and Tom came to me with his idea, his proposal for this exhibition, and I was immediately drawn to the idea. He had emphasized it being a show that would highlight what you can do at the age that he's at. And I was very interested by that, and I thought that he was such a fascinating guy that I wanted to honor his idea and give him a show here at the gallery. I'm just very pleased with how it turned out. It is really a testament to Tom's long career as an artist and the many evolutions of his work over the last decades. It's really incredible to see how his work has evolved and changed and transformed over time. And that's why we wanted to call this exhibition a retrospective, because I really believe that it does showcase his work and how it has evolved over the years and come together. And I'm just really proud of this exhibition and what Tom has been able to pull off with, the amount of work. It's really incredible to see.
I'd like to show you the work that I've done over the past 50 years in ceramics. I was a physician in New Britain for 35 years, and during that time it was rather stressful, and I was looking for a way to reduce the stress, and I went to Wesleyan Pottery in Middletown and took a course with Mary Risley, who is the professor of ceramics at there, and so that was my introduction. While I was there, I learned to do raku, and these pieces here demonstrate the technique. I think that people don't realize that when they're buying something from an artist, they're buying more than just an object. And I think that people don't realize this, and they think, well, I could buy something that is mass-produced and it would be much cheaper, but they're not buying the same object. They're buying something that is unique to the person, but also a unique piece of art. So these pieces here demonstrate the raku technique. This is a takeoff on an Indian wheat bowl, and the idea was the Indians believed that these tin bells, they were tin in the baskets that I saw, would ward off the evil spirits from eating the grain that was inside the bowl. And so I decided I would do that in ceramic and make ceramic bells at the same time. One of the things that I'm interested in is the fact that as we go through life, we cross many paths. And when we cross these paths, they make an effect on us. And this piece of tile raku work is entitled Paths Taken, Paths Crossed, because it indicates to me the fact that as you go through life, you meet different people and they make an effect on your life. They teach you something and you interact with them, and that was an important thing to me. These other pieces, this is a piece of raku work, and this really harkens to the Japanese style of ware, and I thought that this piece of wood, which I grew in my garden, was a representative of the Japanese style. So I put the wood inside the piece of ceramic. These pieces show that you can combine ceramic with other elements like beads and things. And this is what I call my raku sunset, because as I look out from my house, the sunset is a very important thing, and this reminded me of the sunsets that I saw. People don't often think of it, but as they go through a gallery, they should look at the artist's statement, because the artist's statement says something about what they're doing, what they're feeling, why they create art. And I think too often they don't read what's there, and they miss some of the spirit of the pieces that are created by the artist. Here are some more raku pieces, and these pieces here are done with pit firing, and it's an old technique that the American Indian used in the Southwest, where pottery is placed in a big open fire and then either covered or just left there until beautiful colors develop. This is a takeoff on that, in that when you spray ferric chloride on the piece, it turns these beautiful shades of red as it comes out of the kiln. This is an example of the technique of raku. For those who don't know it, it shows the kiln being loaded, then the fired pieces, which get up to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, and then taking them out of the fire and putting them in reduction bins where oxygen is robbed from the glazes, and they turn these beautiful iridescent colors. And here is a piece that was broken and then repaired with a technique called the kintsugi technique, and that simply takes either a gold, or in this case, I put in copper because the overall color was copper. From there, I went to a more non-representational field, and these are more or less some of my contemporary pieces. These pieces here represent what I call my direction series, because I found as I talked to students that they headed in many different directions, and this caused a problem because they didn't know where they were going. So this just demonstrates them going in very different directions. Since I'm a medical man, there was someone who was pregnant, and I thought, how would I represent pregnancy to a person in clay? And so this is the tube and the egg, but then I had trouble with deciding how I could make sperm. And so I found that when I melted bronze wire, that it took on this very strange sperm-like configuration. So that was my piece called Conception. From there, I moved to the combination of steel and ceramics. And again, these are representations of my Direction series. From there, I went to representations of paintings by painting on clay. These are actually clay pieces on which they're painted with glazes and then fired to produce this kind of picture, which I thought was interesting. When my daughter and I traveled to Greece, we stopped at a very small Greek island, and I don't even remember the name of the island, but in the center of the square was a figure that had no features whatsoever. And when I asked the people who lived there what it was, they said it was a kouros. And I said, "What's a kouros?" They said, "That's a young boy." And so I took that featureless thing and I decided to turn it into clay because I like the pure line and pure color. And so this is my kouros series. In one of my favorite songs is by Edith Piaf, La Vie en Rose. And I thought of the song and I said, how could I represent that song? And so this is a piece that I call La Vie en Rose in honor of Edith Piaf. And this was shown in the New Britain Museum of American Art. I found that if I was working with wall hangings, that it was necessary for me to reduce the weight of the clay. So I found that by adding cellulose to clay, it reduced the weight of the clay by 25%, and you could even go to 50% depending on how much you put in there. I also found that if you soaked cloth in the liquid clay, that the cotton cloth would take up the clay, and in doing so, when it was fired, it left this pattern. My mother was a crochet artist, and her work is in the Smithsonian Institute, and so I had many pieces of her crochet work when she passed away. So I decided to see if that could be translated into clay, and this is my mother's mantilla that she wore to church, which is reproduced in porcelain. When you fire the crochet work that's covered with clay, the crochet work disappears, gets burnt out, but it leaves the pattern of the crochet. And I think that this series is called my Babushka series, and it harkens back to many people who have a grandmother who wore a shawl. So it's a very popular series because everybody has a grandmother. This next area is extruded pieces. And in extrusion, you take clay and you press it through a form to produce a very linear piece of material. At first, I didn't like it, but then I found that you could do very interesting things with it. And these are a series of vases and boxes and platters that I made using that technique. This piece is a crenellated bowl form, and I like the irregularity of the surface, and this is coated with 18-karat gold to highlight the glaze that it comes from. These pieces are again made with paper clay, and you can see how fine they are and how thin the material is, and that's one of the good things about paper clay. This piece here is, I call Lying Dying, and it's a representation. As a medical person, I felt that during COVID, many people died because of misinformation, and this is a piece that demonstrates this. Using paper clay allows you to make things that are extremely thin. And this piece is called my Yellow Begonia, And this won third prize at the Hillstead Museum and has been exhibited at the New Britain Museum of Art. And it is actually 4 pieces that are shaped and then put inside each other. And when they're put in the furnace, the glaze sticks them together. So it's actually 4 pieces that are put into one creation. In the olden days, they believed that the moon was made of green cheese. And this is my representation of the moon made of green cheese. And I wanted to have it fly, and so I put it on this metal form to make sure that you could look through it. My wife and I live a very simple life, and we enjoy some of the things that are in nature. And this piece is called Our World, and it demonstrates my wife and I sitting in a tree form, and the things that are represented represent the things that we love so much: the flowers, the trees, our grandchildren who are climbing all over the trees, the birds that we see in our backyard, everything that is simple. We see the stars that are glowing in the firmament, and that makes us happy. So it's a very simple thing, and it's a takeoff of Mexican art form in ceramics, because they often did cows and animals and children playing in a little diorama. So I thought that was a very important thing. The piece that is most important to me is the one here that represents my family's immigration to this country. They came over in the early 1900s in rather dire conditions that were existing in Italy. And they believed that the streets in America were actually paved with gold. And it wasn't until they got here that they found out they weren't. When I was renovating a house that was built in 1769, I found a lot of nails that were originally placed there, and I couldn't stand to throw them away because they represented the work of a blacksmith. Because in those days, each nail had to be produced by hand. And I wanted to show how rough the journey was and how steely the people were who came to this country. And also the weathered bronze metal shows the condition that existed in this journey that took them a month and a half to get here. These are really the people who made America great. They left thousands of people who were well educated in many crafts, and those are the people who have worked here. And I think the poem at the Statue of Liberty that says, "Bring me, you're tired, you're poor, you're yearning to breathe free," by Emma Lazarus, captures the idea that I want to portray. I became interested in my sculpture class in birds, and in my work I like to try to take a concept and turn it into as many forms as I can. So I had birds that were put on a clear background. I had birds that were put on granite bases. I had birds with negative forms in them that combined cedar roots with stone and ceramic. And the birds are all shaped differently to give them the impression of flight. I particularly like to place them in found rock, and because I think that speaks to the natural elements that are there. I also experimented with a garden sculpture, and this, when I had it outdoors, I noticed that when the wind blew, it activated the bird, so the bird actually looked like it was flying. I thought that was pretty neat, and so that's one of my favorite pieces. I tried to use different glazes and different patterns on the birds to make them a little different. And some of them are textured, some of them are plain, some of them have have gold filigree on them. Others are, again, made with found wood and rock. So there's a whole variety of things. I also decided that I would put them in vases, and I had to find a way to make the birds prominent in a vase, and these are carved birds here in the vase. In these pieces here are done in 1/4-inch aluminum, and the birds are cut out and then ground to give a feathery pattern, and then they're bent in a particular shape to give them a flying form. So it may sound easy, but it really isn't. It takes a lot of time, and then they're mounted on granite or stone or wood, and in all different ways of flight. This particular one really shows the feather pattern that's ground into the bird after it's cut and shaped, and it really does give the impression of feathers. These are birds that are ceramic birds that are combined with 18-karat gold and cedar root and stone to make the sculptures of a variety of shapes and sizes. When I moved to a house in Farmington, there was a particular view of the Farmington River, and the river, this scene is something I wanted to frame. And at the time I was taking a sculpture class, and I thought that these birds would be done in ceramic, but being outdoors, that was a risk, and so I had to turn to metal. And these are made of steel, and this form is 16 by 24. And in the daytime, one can see the Farmington River right in the center of this. But one morning I got up and there was this beautiful blue background, and I took a picture of it, and my grandson has produced this for me because he knew we were going to do this exhibit. I also worked with a number of plates with the bird theme, some wall hangings with the bird theme, and also some bird feeders. And these are built so that when you take the top off of the bird feeder, you can put the bird food in there, and then the birds can eat it down here on the moat. This is a piece of clay that has been turned into a bowl shape. One of the advantages of fiber clay is that you can stick other pieces of fiber clay onto it. So I cut out birds and put them along the edge of this, which would be impossible to do with regular clay. So this is another feature of fiber clay that works very well. My grandson was doing a project in Greenfield, Mass., and the project was called the Hidden Canvases. And he and his father were taking buildings, the facades of buildings, and putting pieces of works of art on them to improve the look of the town. So he said, "Gramp, can you do a piece for me?" And I said, "Sure." And then I said, "Well, where do you want me to put it?" And so he showed me a building that was 100 feet long and 200 feet tall, and he said, "That's what you have to fill." So it was a big project for me. And what I did was to put 10 birds in aluminum, this 1/4-inch aluminum. And this is smaller than most of the birds. The birds had a wingspan of 6 feet. And we will show you some pictures in the next room of the finished piece. One of the things I like is shadows. And this mobile shows or demonstrated the fact that when you put this in motion, that the shadows become part of the sculpture. And I like the idea that the shadow became part of the piece of art, and they were integral in the piece. These are some other bird forms, ways of of putting birds on pedestals, and it was just an exploration of how many ways I could make the birds fly. I particularly like this tree. It's called the Corylus contorta. That's the official name, but it's called Harry Lauder's walking stick. I planted a small plant 30 years ago, and it got to be this size, and then it developed a virus, and so it died, but I couldn't stand to throw it away, so I used it to hang my birds on in a more natural setting. And once again, the shadow becomes an important part of the overall composition. So you can see that the shadows add to the depth of the creation. This was another piece of sculpture that I did with, again, trees and birds, and just demonstrates the fact that there's a lot of open space so you can look through it and see the other side. And I outlined the birds in 18 karat gold. This is a flock of birds that is done with aluminum, a thinner aluminum than the other birds that I used, but again, it demonstrates a flock of birds. In my backyard, I dug up this piece of wood, and it seemed to me that it looked like an animal, so I put eyes in it, and it turned into an animal. And I sort of like it, and the fact that someone bought it means that they liked it too. I became interested in public art, and these are pieces of public art that are displayed. This is my bird sculpture in Greenfield, Mass. And you can see that these birds, there's an example of the size of the birds as they're cut out of 1/4-inch steel. I wanted to mount them so that they were away from the brick wall because, again, the shadows, this was the southern exposure, and as the sun went over, it doubled the shadows of the birds and made it a much more interesting feature than it would be otherwise. This is the end result. And this here is a proposal for the new business center at Southern Connecticut State University. And I propose that they have a statue here that would be lit at night. And this is the mock-up of that statue. And then when it was lit at night, it would project a shadow onto the facade of the building. And you can see we did a mock-up of this proposal. Because I was interested in municipal solid waste, I did something called the Trail of the Industrial Revolution. It points out the fact that before the Industrial Revolution, man produced only the things that he needed. But then when the Industrial Revolution came in, he produced a plethora of things, and those things had to be dumped somewhere. And he's running into a pristine forest, and he's leaving a trail of trash behind. And this is in Willard de Loretto Hall, and this is a very large piece of installation that's 13 by 9 feet. This is a mock-up of a mural that I wanted to put in the high school. It's called Knowledge Freedom, and it shows that books and computers are morphing into birds that give people who have the knowledge the freedom, because I firmly believe that the way to free yourself in this society is to gain knowledge. This is my last piece of public art, and this is the Barden-Vandermeer Park pedestrian tunnel in Ann Arbor. And it shows a woman walking through the tunnel, and the panels are 4 by 5, and they're cut out so that they're backlit, and then the birds stand out against the unfinished surface. And this is a 50-foot long tunnel, and it will have a variety of birds going through it. One of the things that I've put together is a PowerPoint presentation of some of the things that you will see here, but other things that are not seen, and you can see some more of my work in this demonstration. I'd like to introduce you to a different way of making ceramics. I tried to turn ceramics into iron, and by giving them a coating of liquid ferric chloride in a very heavy concentration, I was able to turn ceramics into an iron-looking product. And all of these are ceramics, and these little pieces here are actually steel tacks. And when they go through the fire, they blister and turn blue. So I was trying to indicate that these were made up of separate plates of material and produced what I call my iron series. This is an attempt to brighten the iron series with some color, and this is a large platter that is a takeoff on this whole iron series. Over here I have what's called my iron heart, and someone said that his girlfriend had a heart of iron, so I thought I would demonstrate that by producing an iron heart. This piece over here is called my iron monk, and again it uses these steel tacks that are blistered in the fire, and you can see the face in the hood. But some of them I used brass as accents rather than the steel, so they just give a different appearance to the pieces. My grandchildren were enthusiastic about all of the pieces, all of the TV series that used masks. And so I made an iron mask for one of my children, and that's outlined again in 18-karat gold. I hope you appreciate the work that went into this, and I hope that you enjoy them as much as I enjoyed making them. So thank you for coming, and I hope to see you again. Bye now.